Well, it's Saturday, we're 1 week away from Christmas Eve. I have my Pookie Bear out, and it can only mean one thing. Saturday morning related cartoon specials. Well, at least relating to something relating to Saturday morning cartoons. Because today we're going to be talking about some of the cartoons that, at least that I've seen, that I do really like around the holiday season. And around this, I may or may not talk about My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, because a while back, if you remember a certain convention vlog around May, I may or may not have promised that I probably would have talked an episode around this time of year. But, getting off topic here, let's talk about the Garfield Christmas special, simply titled, A Garfield Christmas Special. It's pretty much one of the easiest specials to remember off the top of your head if you're ever in the mood for anything just plain and simple. But plain and simple can mean anything. But Charlie Brown Christmas was another one of the examples of just plain and simple. Garfield Christmas could also mean the exact same thing. But in the story, John takes Garfield and Odie to the farm where John's mother lives and the grandmother is from the Thanksgiving special. And of course, they spend Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with them. And of course, Garfield winds up learning more and more about the grandmother as time goes on, and of course, John and Odie getting more and more into the Christmas spirit. What I mean by that is, of course, Odie winds up going in and, of course, winds up making a Christmas present out of all the things that are laying around on the farm, while John's just celebrating Christmas with his family. And I just realized that it almost relates a lot to probably one of the things that's planned upcoming, A Muppet Family Christmas. But, anyways, Garfield winds up getting more and more of a relation with the grandmother from the Thanksgiving special, as of course we find out that she winds up missing her beloved, from who fought in who knows what war. And wait, I don't remember it being in the original. Yeah. Besides that, if you looked at the original broadcast, they didn't even make, any mention of it in the original, broadcast version. Apparently when the thing first aired, they didn't even show that clip. They essentially cut it out of the original version. So I guess they must have added later, done a whole Rudolph Red-Nosed Reindeer thing. They didn't talk about the grandfather at first in one scene, and then they just decided to add it in later. Okay. Interesting. But, like I said, I was born in 1996, so I'm only going off of history recollections here. But, then again, history can sometimes be inaccurate. Anywho, as Christmas Day arrives, everyone celebrates Christmas perfectly fine, as of course Garfield winds up coming across the old letters that the grandmother winded up receiving from, you know, her fiancé. And it's just really emotional and heartfelt that something like that could ever happen in a special. It really is. I mean, it's not too often you ever see something like that in a special or anything like that. I mean, maybe in a Hallmark movie, but most of those are commonly just being in love and all that. But overall, Garfield Christmas is definitely one worth watching every year. Normally I put it down there, but normally this goes up on my shelf with all the Garfield related things that I've got. So, back to the Garfield shelf it goes. I guess while we're on the subject, I'll have to figure out whether or not I continue on with my plan of talking about My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Christmas specials, or I go to talk about some adaptations of Christmas Carol, because we're running low on time for the 28 Days of Christmas Marathon, so we're going to need to think of something in fast. Maybe I could squeeze in this and the MLP episodes. Yeah, there's like, what, 3 episodes of the, free Christmas episodes thus far? Yeah, 3 episodes, and so I guess we have time to do that. So I guess keep it in here and we'll talk about the MLP episodes, and of course, probably what I consider to be the best adaptation of A Christmas Carol. At least one that doesn't involve the Muppets. So, see you then. So I decided to move forward anyways and just head over to Netflix and, of course, watch the Christmas episodes. That's right, all 3 of them. Yeah, the 3 that they have on Netflix. At least until Season 7 comes out, and there may be a 4th one that Discovery Family might release. So, the first episode we have is Hearths Warming Eve. And this is the first Christmas episode that the series presents to us. Season 2, Episode 11. In this, the main 6 and them present basically a reenactment of the discovery of Equestria and sort of the creation of Heartwarming Eve. And you heard me right, it is the founding of Equestria. It's not the birth of Jesus, or their version of Jesus, no. It's the finding of Equestria and the defeat of the Wendigos, which are creatures that feed off of hate. So, more I think about it, I don't know where I see this and Christmas mixing together in all of this. But here's the story, if some of you don't get it. I mean, the idea behind the fact is that they're asked by Celestia to reenact this play, to tell the story about the finding of Equestria. Okay, that's understandable, but I don't get why it ties into Christmas so much. Like, that's a confusing idea. I mean, first seeing it in 2012 and then seeing it again in 2014, I mean, seeing those when I saw them 2 times, this is my third time watching it, I accepted it for the episode that it was, because I thought it was going to be the only Christmas episode in the whole series that the Hub and Discovery Family were going to at least have on the network. But essentially, this wasn't the only basis for its episodes. I mean, essentially, the story for the play is the Earth, the Pegasi, and the Unicorn are 3 separate tribes. They all hate each other, and they think that they're all against each other. But in honesty, they're not seeing the fact that it's the Wendigos causing all of these wins. So the main leader, played by, of course, Rarity and Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash, decide to take their assistants, Fluttershy and Twilight and Applejack, over to this new land, or whatever, that's peaceful and away from the snowstorm. Probably allow their, assistants to die or whatever. And, of course, they get there, but unfortunately, the Wendigos catch up with them because they just can't learn to find inner peace with themselves. They wind up getting themselves stuck in a cave. They still wind up bickering with each other like a married couple. And, of course, the leaders freeze, but the assistants wind up, of course, breaking the Wendigo spell and, of course, inventing the Hearths Warming, sort of what you would call the Hearths Warming Heart. As, of course, they wind up telling stories and somehow inventing songs that would be passed down for generations to come. You tell me how that works. Sorry about that. And of course, it melts the hearts away. Not really, it just changes the way they express themselves. And of course they become peaceful, and that's how they find Equestria. So, in that sense, that's how Equestria was made and found, but it's also how Hearths Warming was created. In the summary of Garfield from a Garfield Christmas special, these are... I don't know if I can consider this to be, another episode I could probably watch sometime down the line. Probably not. It's not as good as, per se, that season 4 episode with Weird Al Yankovic. It was episode 12 or whatever. Pinkie Pride, there we go. But at least we have some decency and some, at least, good style in the episodes themselves. And at least season 2 was pretty good. But I think, at least if you want to get technical and say what a really fantastic episode was, I pretty much say Amending Fences from season 5. I really, really, really love that one. So, I guess with that in mind, that does it for me in the episode. But when we come back, we're going to take a look at Season 5, Episode 21, which is the second Hearths Warming episode, called Hearthbreakers. So, keep in mind, and we'll come back here. What was I even saying? So, we move on from one Hearths Warming special to the next. And that second Hearths Warming special, if you forgot it, well, if you have a short attention span, is Hearthbreakers. Slurred speech today. Well, in this, Pinkie Pie invites Applejack to her rock farm as they celebrate Hearths Warming Eve on the rock farm with her own family. And of course, the apples are not accustomed to how Pinkie's family does their hearts warming, because the apple family does hearts warming a bit differently from, from everyone else. They do everything rock related, as of course Applejack tries to bring their tradition into theirs, but doesn't go over very well. As of course Limestone, the one who looks after the farm, essentially kicks the Apple family out of the farm. As of course Granny Smith winds up actually knowing a thing or two about the stone in Holder's Boulder and why it's so important to them. Which of course they winded up studying about, and in the long end, Applejack winds up apologizing, realizing the truth about the boulder and why it's so important, and in the end, they wind up traveling and back to the farm, getting the boulder back up, holding it in position, and of course, they all celebrate Hearths Warming Eve in the end. Both apples and Pie family. I really do not know what to say to this one. It's an interesting episode, to say the least. I mean, as far as Heartbreakers, it comes off as going into this blindly. If this was the first episode, I'd steer clear away from it. Essentially, what I could get out of it, at least from what a lot of people say, is just if you don't like the way that your friend celebrates Christmas, force them the way that you celebrate Christmas. At least that's what I heard people say, that's what they feel, what they took off this episode. It's a bit bizarre, but it's definitely not one for the books. It's no amending fences, but it's not even a Hearths Warming Eve type of thing. Far beyond it. Well, at least we have one more thing to take a look at, and at least we can thank the gods that this is the last one out of the marathon. Well, last of the My Little Pony Christmas episodes thus far. And the only reason it's the last one, because it's the latest. At least until Season 7, when Discovery Family basically winds up giving me another hearts-warming episode to take a look at. But let's hope it doesn't happen at Everfree Northwest again. But we'll talk about it when the next transition happens. Okay, so we now conclude the latest of the MLP Hearts Warming Christmas, what do you want to call it, episodes with a Heartwarming Tale. Which, of course, if you haven't caught up already, is the spin on A Christmas Carol. Of course, going into this, when seeing this at Everfree Northwest, and yes, this was one of the episodes that did play at the con when it happened, but this happened at a hotel room where the internet was pretty shoddy and I wasn't able to view it in an accurate internet, but I was able to view it at home perfectly fine. So I wasn't able to view the episode in its entirety. So I had to take a look at the rest of it here at home. But seeing it now fully for the second time, Hearths Warming Tale. In this, Starlight is basically not in the mood to celebrate Hearths Warming Eve. Mostly because she doesn't care about celebrating it. Because, well, in the last season, she was an antagonist. And antagonists don't celebrate Christmas. They either take over the world, or they don't celebrate it. So, in this, Twilight decides to cheer up by, of course, reading a bona fide version of Charles Dickens' story, and tell her the story of A Heartwarming Tale. So, in this, a character who is basically a pony version of Ebenezer Scrooge, named Snowbite Frost, I think it's Snowbite Frost, or I forget these names. I'm just gonna call it what it is by these characters. Ebenezer Frost essentially winds up hating the holidays, and she wants to wind up creating a special potion so that nobody celebrates the holiday anymore. And so it's all work and no play and all of this hoo-ha. But that's until the ghost of Christmas past suddenly appears out of the cauldron and starts sending her to her past and shows her just how she used to celebrate the holiday, until basically what looks like either Lord Voldemort or I would say Alan Rickman's character from the Harry Potter movies basically tells her just how much of a waste that Christmas, Heartwarming Eve is, that basically her life is suddenly flipped. And of course, because of that incident, oh my god, I just realized the name of Alan Rickman's character from the Harry Potter movies, because I just started watching the Harry Potter films. Cerberus Snape. So either the character that young Starlight talks to in this episode is either Cerberus Snape or He Who Should Not Be Named, which I've already mentioned once. So I'm probably going to die now after mentioning that name. But anywho, she realizes that, but she's not a bit fazed by it, as she winds up getting visited by the ghost of Christmas presents, not present, presents, with a plural, an S, as of course, the, in musical number, she winds up showing, Ebenezer Frost, the idea behind why Heartwarming Eve means so much to everybody, and it isn't about the presents and, it isn't about the presents and everything. It's about the meaning behind it. I mean, as of course he winds up, taking a look at a current party that her assistant's actually at right now. And of course, suddenly, she lets off a warning that if these events go unchanged, it's then on that this would be the last, and everyone is doomed. That's when suddenly she's introduced to the ghost of Hearths Warming yet to come. Now I remember when that episode came out, everybody in forums and Equestria Daily and DeviantArt and just about everywhere, they were all talking about this one scene, this one little scene, in musical number, must I mind you. And because of that, it's Princess Luna as the ghost of Hearths Warming yet to come. And she has this little musical number that's so impossible to hear over my soundbar. And it shows just how abandoned everybody is. If Ebenezer Frost decides to go on with her spell. Which, of course, Star Ebenezer Frost decides she ain't gonna do it. She's not going to go with her spell. She wakes up and decides to just be a citizen and just celebrate the holiday. And from then on, they celebrate the holiday. Starlight just basically decides to join the party, and everything goes normally. And what I do say about Hearths Warming Tale is pretty much it's not fairly bad for, a bona fide version of, a Christmas Carol. I mean, pretty much as I've said in my home version and not the quick, hotel room version that I did at Everfree Northwest, is that essentially, oh god, what did I say? Oh yeah, is that pretty much I have three favorite versions of this. One is the short one with Mickey Mouse, which they managed to tell the story in 30 minutes, packed a lot of emotion into it, and surprisingly enough, it's probably one of the best renditions that Disney has ever put out. Well, other than the one where they use motion capture to tell the story. But also, a lot of it is actually pretty impressive. But it was also one of the earliest ones I was actually introduced to, so that actually makes it a whole lot better. Another one that's actually one of my favorites that takes place in modern time is Scrooged. Which, that being the one featuring Bill Murray, which takes place in modern time. Instead of a banker, he's a TV executive. And there's just so much hilarity and comedy put into it that I just love it overall. And if there's one that's actually close to the original version, I'd say it's either The Muppets Christmas Carol, or, of course, what I'm going to be watching next, is the George C. Scott version of A Christmas Carol, which sometimes comes on AMC or Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. But overall, this Scrooged and Mickey's Christmas Carol, but also The Muppets Christmas Carol, are a few of my favorite versions of A Christmas Carol there is thus far. As for Hearths Warming Tale, I'd say it's somewhere in that mix. I mean, it's for something, well, they're trying to tell the thing in 22 minutes. I mean, they didn't try to go for, like, anything or add Jacob Marley, because I think if I recalled one of the tweets correctly, they winded up saying that they couldn't add him in. Like, I think Discord is going to be Jacob Marley in the original storyboards, but they had to cut him out for time constraints. And another factor is they obviously couldn't show, the tombstone of the literal Ebenezer Frost in this, because, that being MLP, and they can't show death in the show because, kids are actually watching this show, But, in all seriousness, they did pretty much what I would say is an average job of telling, their rendition of A Christmas Carol in this. So, I guess with that in mind, if you want a simplified version of A Christmas Carol, but you don't want to go onto the dark side of things, well, thing is, I'm not the person to pick which version to go for. I mean, if you want to stick with MLP and their rendition of Christmas Carol, I'd say go with this, but if you want to at least show them Muppets or Mickey's Christmas Carol, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best versions there is out there. But if you want to go to really insane size, try finding the George C. Scott version. It's pretty much one of the superior versions there is. And speaking of George C. Scott, whoa, I want to bake this. Let's jump into this. And so, to conclude today, I finally get to talk about what is, in my opinion, one of my most favorite adaptations of the classic Charles Dickens novel, well, book to be precise, but at least it's not a short story, is, of course, the George C. Scott version of A Christmas Carol. Pretty much everybody knows this story, and they all know the premise of it. I mean, pretty much around the holiday season, pretty much anyone would either know the common ones. The Muppets, Mickey Mouse, the one with Jim Carrey, which came out in 2009, and the classic one with Alastair Sim called Scrooge, which I have yet to see that one because I've only seen, the 1951 version of it, which was like 1 hour and 9 minutes, which was surprising that I actually saw that one and not the Alastair Sim version. But as I've stated before many times, I consider the George C. Scott adaptation and, surprisingly, the Muppets version to be the superior versions. And surprisingly, George C. Scott nails the role of Ebenezer Scrooge. For Pete's sake, he was Patton in the Oscar winner Patton. And besides that, he was also in Doctor Strangelove. And besides that, you could listen into my previous story to even know what I'm talking about on the, to learn on the Christmas Carol tale. But I'll just repeat it here for the sake of those curious. Ebenezer Scrooge had a partner named Jacob Marley. He died. And 7 years later, he still hates the holidays. And people wonder why he hates it. It isn't until one night where he's haunted by his old former partner, and he tells him that he'll be visited by free spirits. And he's reminded of his past, his present, and of course he's warned about the future that could behold him if they are not changed. The thing that I love about this is just the shock and twist of Ebenezer Scrooge finding out about his tombstone and the grave, where he just goes into the graveyard with the ghost of yet to come. And just in a twist of shock, he, pulls off the snow and sees his own name in the tombstone. I don't know, it always scares me to see that name in there. But, of course, seeing how he winds up, saying that he'll change his ways, he wakes up Christmas morning to find that, of course, he winds up giving Bob Cratchit the light end of the stick, essentially making him his best partner possible. Giving help to Bob Cratchit's Tiny Tim. And of course, going over to his nephew's house, and in the long end, he doesn't treat anybody bad anymore. I cannot find the right words to describe just how much I love the George C. Scott version of this. I just love this movie to no end. That is how much I love this version of A Christmas Carol. I think there is no time in history that there'll be any other version of A Christmas Carol that will try to beat this one. I mean, pretty much as I've said it before, it's this, Muppets, Mickey Mouse, and I think that's about it. I don't know, I have a short memory, so pretty much if you want to see this, find it. Yeah, I think it's available on DVD and Blu-ray, but you can sometimes find it on AMC, but also on Hallmark's Movies and Mysteries. That is, if it's playing on that channel. But, of course, that I think will conclude for today. Because, well, look at the time. It's 7:35, at least by the time I'm recording this. So, I gotta wrap things up and move right along, because I got a busy week ahead of me. So, we're on the home stretch for the 28 days. Wonder what I can do next to, wrap things up. So, with that in mind, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys tomorrow for a new episode. If you have any requests, comment down below, and hopefully I might be able to pick them up. So, see ya.